This is the Hoff Time Report with Idaho Freedom Foundation President Wayne Hoffman, one of Idaho's most respected, influential public policy voices.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Hoff Time. It's good to be here again, and here with Alli Megal, who's our Operations and Development Director. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Welcome to the program.
Thanks.
So a lot of our donors get to meet Alli, and of course, she's probably the face of the organization when folks call up or have questions about this and that and the other thing. But we had a interesting conversation. I've had several interesting conversations.
We have interesting conversations.
We have interesting conversations generally, but Alli is a doula also. You are.
I don't really practice anymore.
You don't practice, but you still have the skills. Yeah. We talk a lot in the office about how public policy shapes people's lives, and because of the fact that you have this experience in helping women, not
couples,
not
women,
but not people who identify as women,
not birthing persons.
Not birthing persons.
No, I don't.
Give birth. We had a topic came up that I thought was really interesting. It had to do with the difference between women who go through a natural pregnancy and those who didn't, and the effects on their children. And can you just kind of walk through that a little bit? Because I think it's better for you to tell it than for me.
Okay, so basically, if you haven't heard of what a doula is a person, typically a woman. It's a Greek word that means mothering the mother. So it's kind of coaching the mother through her childbirth experience the way she wants to experience it, or the way the couple wants to bring their child into the world, versus how the medical establishment wants to bring a child into the world. So
the medical establishment, that sounded kind of pejorative, but keep going.
Okay, so I the healthcare industry, what do we want to call it?
The medical industrial complex.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you think about having a baby, if you were to go way back in history, there were no hospitals, right? Usually a midwife would deliver the baby in the privacy and comfort of your own home. And there were no invasive treatments for mom or baby. Not a lot of medication was used, or if they were natural herbal treatments. And everything was usually done with a midwife, and then the women in the family and whoever, the woman having the baby. And the men weren't really all that involved. But with the medicalization of childbirth, a couple of things happened. Probably most importantly is that it became very expensive to have a baby. Mm-hmm. Something that should be free, really, or just natural, became a profitable experience. And it also became very invasive to both mother and baby in terms of what they do to meet protocol in the hospital. So you'll have all sorts of extra things that are typically unnecessary, but most people who don't know any better or have never birthed the baby at home think are normal. Like, for instance, having to lay down in a hospital bed right away. Absolute worst thing you could do when you're in labor. You want the baby to come out. You want that process to go as fast as possible, and laying down on your back is probably the worst thing to do.
But that's what everybody does.
That's what everybody does.
Wow.
And then they usually put monitors on the mom and maybe an IV, or they'll say, oh, your blood pressure's high, so you need this. And it's just one invasive thing after another that ultimately affects both mom and baby, especially when you get into like pain medications like epidural and stuff like that. APGAR scores, which are the tests they give babies as soon as they're born.
APGAR.
APGAR. I can't tell you what the acronym means right now, but it's basically like 4 different things they test the baby for, like coloring, sound, just how they react. And babies who've been exposed to maybe Pitocin, which is a synthetic hormone to get your labor going quickly, or an epidural, or some sort of saddle block, or something that would, help mom cope with pain, it does affect the baby. And they like to say, oh, no, it doesn't. But I've seen it firsthand. Moms who have these types of treatments, their babies' APGAR scores will tend to be lower.
So what is that? What is that? Because this is really interesting to me, and from our discussions in public policy, because we talk about over medication of the populace generally, but now we're talking about what happens when babies are born medicated versus what babies are born unmedicated. And I'm not, obviously you're not medicating the baby, but medicating the mother, but you're medicating both of them, right?
I mean, the mother is sharing her body with the baby, right, and the blood and everything. So prior to that baby being born, everything that the mother gets, the baby eventually gets.
So you have seen this firsthand, the difference between...
Yes, absolutely.
So what does that look like?
I have seen a baby literally come out and crawl to the mother's breast and begin latching on, and that's totally normal. That would in a normal birthing experience without any interventions, unnecessary interventions, I think that would be a very common thing to see. But you don't see it very often in the hospital because I think part of the problem is the doctors are stretched pretty thin. So there's however many women giving birth on one OBGYN level, and then, one doctor or two doctors available to birth those babies. So they have to move. And, so they're in a hurry and they want to get that baby out and they want to get mom cleaned up and they want to move on to the next patient. But in a home birth or a birthing center, it's usually much more relaxed. Nobody's in a hurry. Mom's doing what she needs to do to birth her baby. There's no instructions as she should be on her back laying in a hospital bed. She can be up, walking, squatting, in a tub, whatever she's most comfortable with. But in a hospital, the protocols are different. So they're in a hurry and they want things to go, according to their protocol at their convenience.
So what's interesting to me about this whole thing is, number one, the cost. So roughly half the babies in Idaho and across the country are born on Medicaid. Mm-hmm. And being on Medicaid, based on our research of other kinds of medical interventions, there seems to be a greater usage of medical interventions for people on Medicaid versus the non-Medicaid, either the uninsured or the privately insured population, because there's a difference between you're going to pay a copayment of some kind or it's just free. So drug me up, pop that baby out, and it's not going to cost me anything. And then the second thing is the long-term physical and mental health implications. Do we know what those are?
I wish we had like a study that we could look at, because I'm willing to bet that most babies birthed on Medicaid are probably receiving epidurals and cesareans, scheduled cesareans, because they are a higher ticket item, obviously. And if the money's there, why wouldn't a hospital grab it, And I started out as a doula working for a nonprofit organization called the Up Connection, and it was to help teen moms who were pregnant, and they provided doulas for these teen moms, and that was kind of the education. You go to the hospital, you get an epidural. Epidural often leads to or can lead to a C-section because it slows the labor completely down or stops it in some cases. And if you have a teen mom who's scared to death, probably by herself, doesn't have a lot of family support or the support of the father, they're going to do what they're told. They don't know. They don't know any different. So they're doing what they're told, and they don't ever think to, I don't have to do this. I don't have to expose myself or my baby to this. But they don't know because nobody tells them. So I'm willing to bet, I haven't seen a study, or I don't know, but I'm willing to bet that Medicaid childbirths are as expensive as they possibly can be and totally unnecessary, especially if you're talking about teen moms, because they can probably have a baby easier than any woman, any age,
And I was looking for just also some data on, is there a difference physically or mentally in children born with some kind of medical intervention versus not? There's a lot of research out there about the impacts on the mother. But there's not a lot about the impact on, at least not that I can find anyway, on the child. And you kind of wonder if there's some long-term impact that we just don't know about or understand.
Well, in the demographic that I'm talking about, a lot of these moms are on WIC or in some kind of public assistance, so they have to do well baby checks. And this kind of all goes back to what happened with Diego Rodriguez's family, right? Like, those babies have to meet certain requirements to be considered healthy, and if they don't, then the state can intervene and take those babies. But if you're talking about a population who's not well educated or maybe ignorant just because they don't know, they're kind of at the whim of this system that they tell you if your baby's healthy or not. And in that case, that baby, they were saying he had low birth weight, but I saw that baby, he seemed completely healthy and happy and functioning and vibrant, and maybe he was a little baby, but his parents were smaller stature,
Right.
so naturally he's going to be a smaller baby. So who's to say? I mean, these folks that are doing the well baby checks, they get to call that. Will we ever know? Will we ever get accurate studies? I don't even know.
Yeah, and that's also another interesting thing too, because people discount sort of that early experience for children when they don't really supposedly remember stuff. You know, I don't remember being 2 years old. I don't know that you remember being 2. Well, do you?
I think my earliest memory is at 18 months.
No kidding.
Yes.
That's a little unusual.
Yeah. I remember.
What do you remember? What do you remember?
I was holding a bottle and I was walking across this bridge, and I could see in between the slats in the bridge, and I remember being terrified and like grabbing my mom's leg to
Wow.
get picked up because I didn't want to cross that bridge. It looked scary to me. So yeah, I was young.
So mine is, I think I was probably 3, I'm guessing. But I tend to think that kids retain a lot more than we give them credit for, and that, I mean, there's something to them from the moment that they're born, and all that is stuff that they carry through the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Whether they're born through a cesarean section or
a vacuum.
or a
That's
vacuum of some
a
kind,
violent process.
which is another thing too. You know, it's sort of the scheduling of births by convenience, and my kids were born that way. You know, just show up on this and this time, and
How
at this
convenient.
date, and we'll if you're not ready, we'll put some what's it called? Pitocin in, and then we'll grab the vacuum if nothing's working quite right. And
Yeah, it's very barbaric practice. If you've ever seen a forceps birth or a vacuum birth, it's terrifying to watch.
yeah.
What it does to the baby and the mom. I've seen horrible things happen as a result.
The reason why we're having this conversation, this might seem a little different from other topics that we've talked about before, but I just found it so fascinating. Like I said, as public policy practitioners, you want to ask questions about the effects of the different things that you're doing. And as Thomas Sowell has said, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So what are the trade-offs for this system of convenience? And the second thing is, so when you also, interestingly, has been in the news, but only recently in the news, we've been talking about this a lot longer. There have been some articles saying that different hospitals, there's one in North Idaho, another one a little farther south, that aren't going to be doing labor and delivery. And my understanding is that there have been, in fact, had dinner with some folks last night who said that there hasn't been a bona fide hospital in his area for many years. They ship people to other parts of the state to get different kinds of treatments done. But it's sort of the scary thing. Oh my gosh, the hospital's not doing labor and delivery, but
They never should have been. I
Why
get that
are they
there's
doing-
some instances where medical intervention may be necessary. Okay, I do believe that, but I think it's far and few between. And I think a lot of the reasons that medical procedures like that are necessary are because of some of the things they do to the mom as soon as she gets to the labor and delivery unit. I mean, there's some invasive stuff going on. Like I said, the first thing they do is put you in bed. You should be up walking around and moving around, and letting gravity do its job. And if you're laying on your back, that's not helping at all, probably, in any way, shape,
But
or
see,
form.
now some people would think that we've come a long way with labor and delivery from where we were 60 years ago, where
Yeah.
they put you on a gurney, and it was a very...
It was very barbaric then, too, because they used, and like back in the 50s, the twilight drug, where they basically knock mom out. And they rob. Watching your baby be born is a very beautiful thing. You're welcoming a child into your life and your family, and most people anticipate that for a long, long time. So if you're robbed of that experience, it's got to be traumatic for all parties involved, both the parent and the baby.
Yeah.
There's all that bonding, everything that happens minutes after birth is so important, and it's a beautiful process. It's natural.
It's natural. It's human. It's
Yeah.
part of who we are. This is a topic I just want to explore a bit more as time goes on, because again, it's as public policy researchers, the questions you would ask are: is it more expensive? Is it necessary? Is there some other impact that we don't quite understand? Is there, and I'm not saying by any way, shape, or form that if you're born, in a way that's less natural, that you're going to have mental health problems or physical problems. But these are things we don't fully understand what takes place over the course of many years, and what the impacts are from the moment you're born, what those things are that carry on through the rest of your life. So I just thought it was an interesting topic, and one that you have some expertise in that the rest of us maybe don't. And so I wanted to
Thank you.
give you a chance to talk about that a little bit.
It is interesting. And, you're setting a lifelong precedence, I think, when you're born into that medical system. You always are, I think, because your mom and probably her mom and her mom before her believed that that's the way it was supposed to be done. So you just always go to a doctor whenever you need anything, and maybe we don't explore other options because that's just so readily available to folks, especially on the Medicaid. They don't have to pay for it, right? So why wouldn't they just go get it fixed from a doctor?
And even people who, like I said, my kids were born in my daughter was born in Burley, and my son was born in Boise, and we never thought twice about going to a hospital. It was just, that's what you did. Where are you? Well, we're in Burley. We go to that was called Casual Regional Medical Center at the time, and of course in Boise at St. Luke's, where many, 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 many babies have been born. And I'm not saying that that's not right for some people, but the question is, given the fact that throughout human existence we've seemed to have done just fine,
and mammals in the wild
all the time
don't go to a hospital to have their babies, and they often have litters of babies.
Right. For some reason, it's this whole big to-do that requires
why wouldn't it? Money's involved.
Multiple teams of nurses and doctors and drugs, business. And it's big business, and it's part of, yet again, another example of the medical industrial complex, in my view anyway, and I believe you feel that as well.
I do, and I personally know NICU nurses and OBGYNs that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, but that's what they were educated to do, to work for this system. It would be nice if they were all midwives, and could assist women at home.
It's the same as, what I hear from other medical practitioners about pharmaceuticals generally. You go to a doctor's office and you have a stomach ache or, hangnail or whatever it may be, and they hand you some kind of a pill. And there's so many things out there that are just natural. And, of course, if you were living, not so long ago, and for much of human history, there wasn't a pill. There was you understood how to get different leaves and herbs and different kinds of foods, and you make the thing that would solve your problem. And again, which is not to say that there's not some benefit to aspects of modern medicine, but the question is, have we come so far that we're not examining the other effects on people's mental and physical health by virtue of taking medical interventions that may not otherwise be necessary when there's so much natural stuff that's still out there.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's all. That was fun. I just wanted to get that off our
was
chest,
easy.
and it was very easy. Thanks again for watching, and stay tuned. You never know what we're going to be talking about here on this program on the Hoff Time Report. Until next time, thanks for
Hi,
watching.
everybody.
You've been listening to the Hoff Time Report with Wayne Hoffman. Be sure to visit IdahoFreedom.org for Wayne's articles, IFF research, and show notes from today's episode.